Hey, today we have Justin Ziegler here. This is the truck that he competed in King of the Streets in 2019, and it's got a pretty radical setup in it. We're hoping to make some big numbers today. I'm going to let you go over, just tell the guys what you did to the truck, and
Sure.
then we'll get started today.
It's got a dry Pine Hill deck plate 6.7 in it, a 5.9 crank, 4200 bore, 12 mil over 14 mil, CP3 setup, all from Exergy, actually 500%. Slosh pad middle of the tubing setup for it. It's got a 485 stainless 5-blade, two 480s over top of it, Freedom race head. I mean, pretty much didn't really spare any expense, wanted it to be as badass as it could be. Had some cooling issues, so we're running it dry now, and Freedom's building us a new wet deck plate 6.7, and we'll be ready for KOS with that.
So it should be a good time. I mean, 500% and a big set of triples. Generally,
and a Firepunk Comp 3.
Yeah, it's got our 48 RE in it. Should be ready to make some horsepower. But obviously we start on the bottom side and work our way up. We've got data logger, and we can see dry pressure, boost pressure, watch all our pressures, EGTs, make sure everything's being is healthy. Because obviously you don't want to tear up a setup like this.
Right.
And but when you make horsepower, there's always a risk. You cannot make a big horsepower number without a small amount of risk. So it takes a good recipe of parts, and it takes a little bit of luck, and you can keep everything together.
Yeah, let's
But with being running dry, it's going to take a little longer process today because we have to make a dyno pole, shut it down, get fans on it, cool it down for a half hour. Then make another run, try to get oil temp back down to 120 before we start it again. So we'll make the first rip on it and go from there. Okay, we've made 2 pulls on the truck so far. The first pull did 1,502 horsepower. The second one did 1,527. Between the 2 runs, we changed the rail pressure relief valve. So what we're seeing is at high RPM, rail pressure is pulling down to 24,000. I'm commanding 28,000 PSI, and that means we have a high pressure leak somewhere. It has a 12 millimeter and a 14 millimeter pump. That's plenty of pump to make. I mean, we should be able to support 2,000, 2,500 microseconds on these injectors. I mean, we got plenty of pump. So the pumps are going wide open, and we're running out of rail pressure at 1,300 microseconds. So at this point, I think we're going to pull the rail off, maybe change the feed tubes, retorque it, and put it back on, because until we get it to hold rail pressure at the lower fuel quantity, there's no sense in turning it up, because it's just going to pull the rail down further, and it's not going to make peak power. So we're going to do a little bit of diagnostic through the fuel rail pressure issue, and then we'll be back at the dyno. Okay, to do a CP3 test, we unplugged each pump individually, thinking that maybe we had a stuck FCA, fuel control actuator, and we unplugged the top pump, instantly banged 29,000 rail, plugged it back in, rail pressure goes down to 7,500, unplugged the bottom pump, and it only goes to 17,000 rail. So that means that the FCA is stuck, or so we thought. So we put a new FCA on it, and we still had the same thing. So we're guessing there's a problem in the pump, the 14 mil pump on the bottom. These pumps, if like he's been running VP fuel, and if you let it sit over winter doing an engine build, that can swell up the seals or gaskets inside, cause internal leaks. We're not sure if this is the problem or not, but I have another 14 mil pump here that's on the shelf. We're going to swap that on and see if that fixes our problem. If so, we'll send this pump back to Exergy. I'll open it up, change the seals, and send this back and replace the pump that we put on here as a spare. So hopefully this fixes the problem, and we can start turning this truck up and making some horsepower. I made 27,000 pounds rail, and it still had 2,000 milliamps left. The pumps are like toasting. So that pump was definitely the problem with our rail pressure. So we are ready to turn this thing up. We made 1775, and I had cut the run off at like 100 miles an hour, but the graph was still going up. I think it'd probably do 1820, 1840 on that tune if I had extended on out. We're gonna cool the truck down, and we're ready to make some horsepower. Okay, we finished the day at a peak horsepower of 1,811 horsepower. We did turn it up even more, and the dyno, it's just really hard to stick the tire when you're making a 2,000 horsepower hit. These triples come on so violently. It's either like when they come in at 20 pounds, they will just hammer. And I'm pretty sure it's making more power, but it's not sticking it on the tires. But we were able to make 1,811 horsepower, and I feel like he's going to go to the track and run significantly better than what he did before, because we did find some rail pressure issues. We fought through all those issues, got the thing dialed in, regulating current correctly. And that's really the reason he comes down here to dial a truck like this in, because we could spend all day and got it dialed in, and he saved himself 3 or 4 weekends of messing around with it on at the racetrack. So we're going to get this thing, the tires changed, they're going to get it on the trailer and headed home. It's a Friday night, and we're going to go enjoy ourselves a weekend with the family.